Good evening. My name is Stephen Spruill, and I'm along with my group comrade, Mr. Sherry Thompson. Happy to have him with us as well. Uh, we're here to present our oral presentation. Our presentation today for MRTS 1330, Mrs. Schertz and Mrs. Gardner, is funeral service transportation. There, we want to talk about the time period from 1980 to the present day, 2022. We're talking about this period because funeral transportation, along with let me just say, transportation along with social media has been the two uh, items that have had the most impact, I believe, in the world the last 100 years. Transportation, the evolution of transportation, and social media. It has changed how we do every single thing in life. Funeral transportation in particular has changed. Early on, 100 years ago, when someone died, they normally died within a region of their home where they were raised or where they lived. As you see in our first PowerPoint presentation, many people did not have cars. There were no vehicles. They were using horse-drawn carriages, or they would simply tote their dead to the local cemetery. In southern states, even today, you can find in some rural countries that in towns that every church or just about every church has a cemetery behind, on the side, or in front of it, or across the street. This was so, if not, every community had a cemetery to ensure that its dead would be buried in a reverent and respected way. They wanted to make sure that we could process to the cemetery, that we could get that closure, we could mentally see it, we could put it in our lives, and we could move on with the grief process so that our lives could be complete. You see in our first PowerPoint presentation, a funeral called The Procession, a famous painting, the procession where the people walked to the cemetery to celebrate the life of the deceased. Our PowerPoint questions for our presentation today: why is the funeral transportation industry so important, and how has it changed the funeral industry? It has changed the industry tremendously in that before, people were relegated to a certain area. Our soldiers that died in the battle and on battlefields, many of them had to be buried where they died. Many were left where they fell dead because of the cost of preservation and trying to get them transported back. Then we moved to a point where, under President Lincoln, many of the soldiers were brought home on trains, but still it was expensive. Today, transportation has evolved to the point that someone can die halfway across the world. They can be flown home in a timely manner where they can be viewed, open casket funeral, and the family can start that healing process, that grieving process that's so needed so that their lives can be complete. The impact that the transportation industry has had on the funeral industry is that it has changed everything. It has changed where people can also use their favorite funeral home or their funeral establishment in another city, another town, or even have them escort them to another state if need be, with the aid of other services, funeral homes. So that, with looking at the funeral transportation industry, it has changed everything vastly. It has changed it to a point where it makes the process easier. Everything can be used, from trains, caissons, specialty made fleets, sprinters, motorcycle, horse-drawn carriages, airplanes. All are available for use in the funeral transportation industry. We chose to use in our presentation 4 historical figures. There are so many that we could have chosen in this time. Betty White, for instance. I love Betty White. But we chose to use President Bush, the 41st President of the United States, Michael Jackson, the King of Pop, the Queen of Soul, Miss Aretha Franklin, and of course, the beloved Princess Diana. They had major impacts on the funeral industry during this time. Early on, many used horse-drawn carriages. We see a horse-drawn carriage here. However, this carriage is a little bit more ornate and more contemporary. In primitive time, they would have used carriages maybe that was used to haul hay or household goods. This is a horse-drawn carriage that families are now going back to. I was just on a service a couple of days ago where the family elected to, a mile and a half out from the cemetery, pull over, have the casket placed in the horse-drawn carriage, and the horse-drawn carriage to process to the cemetery to the final resting place so that they could look, take pictures, and they could see that was the decedent's request. Horse-drawn carriages are still used today, and they are a lovely add-on to the service. Our traditional fleet you see here, our lead car, our family car, our pallbearer limousine, our funeral coach with embedded landau bars. You see those. Those are the typical. Today, funeral coaches are just not black. They're just not black Cadillacs, but they can be Lincolns, Teslas, Rolls Royce. They can be Chrysler 300s. They can be Oldsmobiles. They can be Mercedes. Anything. There's no limit to what car can be used and what coach builder can build a vehicle for the funeral transportation industry, from S&S, Armbruster, Miller and Sons, Federal. There's just a plethora of coach builders, along with the major manufacturers, Cadillac and Lincoln, that produce cars for the funeral livery, and for the funeral industry. Lately, the last 10 years or so, maybe 7, maybe even 5, the introduction of sprinters have been used in the funeral service. The new cars are smaller. The masses of people have grown a little bit larger, and therefore there's a limited number of people that can fit inside a limousine. So many families elect to even use Mercedes Sprinters so that more people can get on. They can be together. Taller people, longer legs, they can stretch. Also, the sprinters are equipped with a mini bar so that cold refreshments can be placed there, water, juice, Cokes, soda, so the family can have refreshments to the church, and from the church to the cemetery, from the cemetery back to the home or wherever the family dinner will be. So many now have elected to personalize services and funeral traditions. Many bikers have chosen to personalize their service. Here's a Harley Trike with a funeral caisson attached to it so that those bikers can be honored in the way they rode the bikes through life. They want to ride out on a bike in death, and it's a fitting tribute to serve them and to reverence their wishes and their desires. There's been a growing number. You see our top slide of the Rosewood fleet, throwback of the old school cars. They're made on brand new chassis with the Corvette engines, made there in Arkansas. We find many funeral homes are now electing to do it. This is our set with the oval window, two-tone set. One of the advantages of this set is that this set never dates. Like the traditional hearses, the body style changes 3 to 5 years. This set will be just as relevant 20 years from now as it is the day it is delivered, because it is a throwback, so it's already dated out. It doesn't date anymore. It helps in the industry. It helps with the bottom line. Our bottom slide, we see a caisson that is attached to a personal vehicle. We find that many families want to use their own personal vehicle, their truck that they call, or their SUV they call, their favorite baby. This is a fitting way to allow their baby to take them to their final resting place using one of our caissons. It is a new twist in the funeral transportation industry. I said early on in our presentation that a person can die halfway across the world, and we can get them flown in with air cargo now. With most major airlines, they have the availability to transport human remains, as you see here in our picture, in a combo unit, so that they can get back home to their loved ones, so their loved ones can have a service of celebration to bring closure in their life about the death of their loved one. We're using in this presentation, Princess Diana. My God, who doesn't love Princess Diana? The world fell in love with Princess Diana. And we see in these pictures the use of funeral transportation allowed thousands of people locally there in London to celebrate and to join in the service through her death, as we see. The Queen of Soul, Miss Aretha Franklin. We see that many were able to share. That's the hearse here is the hearse that her father and Rosa Parks was driven in. She was also driven. This hearse was just a hearse they had for flowers. Some flowers, it was numerous. And the Pink Cadillacs was a tribute to her song Pink Cadillac. President Bush, we saw him just like President Lincoln. They placed him on a train here in Texas, and you can see thousands of well-wishers able to participate because of the train coming through their city. The king of pop, Mr. Michael Jackson, had the Rolls-Royce fleet. Again, funeral transportation has changed so much. The sky is the limit. You can do anything. Sherrick and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present our presentation on funeral transportation, 1980 through the present day.